I love the pants that are missing. I mean, it's kind of my version of if a tree falls in the woods doesn't make a sound. For me, it's like if you don't see the pants, do the pants exist? It applies to real life too, you know. Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display for another entry within the Customizer's Journal. So again, to distinguish between a Customizer's Journal and a straight up tutorial, a tutorial is pretty much demonstrating a method that's already kind of been done, and I'm just trying to sum it up, keep it brief, make it easy for you. But as for a Customizer's Journal, we're trying something that is new, and it's going to be a lot of problem solving. You're going to be seeing me make things that are really cool. You're also going to see me mess up quite a bit. We're just going to be trying something brand new that maybe not a whole lot of other people have done. So this is just me, a customizer, going into this raw, trying to figure out a method. And in this case, the project that we will be working at today is, here we have the Phantom Gremlin, who I just reviewed recently this week, who is an absolutely awesome figure. But as I said at the end of that review in the bloopers and bullcrap reel, I really wanted to do something else to spruce him up a little bit more. And I wanted to give him soft goods to help simulate that last scene that we have with him when he's at the organ. He's dressed up as the Phantom, then you have that, I guess, Christine Gremlin take off his mask, then he comes towards the camera, pointing at you, and then that's the last we ever see of him. So what I want to do is not only make those soft garments, but this Customizer's Journal is going to be really interesting because we're going to be playing with the idea of deception. So what does that mean? Basically, deception, it's a term I use when you're customizing a figure, and you're making it look a certain way, but you're kind of hiding certain details from the viewer, so it isn't truly a complete custom figure. I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but first of all, let's just talk about the elements that I'm going to attempt to build into this figure. So I actually want to make this outfit removable, so that way I could also take it off, look at the paint work and all that, because who would want to hide that? It already looks fantastic as is. So in order to prepare for this, the first thing I did is I looked for the clip of the Phantom at the organ, and you should see some screenshots going across your screen right now. And as you can see, they're very dark. It's not too easy to see. The first one I grabbed is from the back, so I can sort of get an idea of the layout of the cloth. And even then, it's kind of dark, silhouetted, a little bit foggy, so it's really hard to kind of make out exactly how this Phantom Gremlin looks fully clothed. And even when we got some shots from the front, of course he's wearing the mask now, and he also has it removed from his face, and we learn a little bit more about that design. He also has the buttons on his vest, he has a bow, and then it gives us a little bit more insight as to that flap on the back that we saw earlier. Now it kind of comes down kind of like a scarf, but I still couldn't totally make it out, so we knew at least that much. But then I went online and I couldn't find an actual picture of the puppet prop, which would have been really easy to reference from. But I did, however, try something else. So since we don't have a definitive image of this gremlin fully clothed, I looked at his influence, which is the Phantom of the Opera. And fortunately enough, wouldn't you know it, I have NECA's Phantom of the Opera on pre-order. So what I did is I looked at an image of one of that figure, and that opened so many more doors. It gave me a whole lot more clarity on how I wanted to do this. So exactly what will we be doing? So I guess I'll show you the materials that I'll be using. So the first thing I have here is kind of like this old glasses cleaning cloth, which is a little bit wrinkly, but that's okay. I'm going to be cutting this up anyways, just be using the cleanest sides. It has really nice texture to it that I really like. And my plans for this is, of course, this is going to become that vest that goes under, so that will be pretty neat. And in order to simulate those buttons, I kind of had a tough time figuring that out, but I'm going to use this sort of chain that I have here. I'm going to clip it up, paint them black. That should be enough. And then I'm just going to very tediously glue them onto the vest, and hopefully that looks pretty okay. And then, of course, after we do all of that, I am going to lay down some soft goods. So I have all this black cloth. I have a little bit and gray over here in case I want to change up the colors a little bit so it's not just all the same thing, so it looks like it's more layered. I mean, that's a really good thing. When you're a customizer, you absolutely need to accumulate a fodder box over time, which is basically just a piece of parts of loose cloth, clothing that you've cut up. Basically, when you're a customizer, you won't actually ever have to throw out an article of clothing again, because if it's a good material, you can cut it up and then use it for a figure, like we're doing right here. So basically, when it comes to the deceptive aspect, what I'm trying to do, what I'm hoping I'll be able to do anyways, is firstly, of course, we're going to do the vest, and then we're going to do the sleeves. That's kind of going to be one part. And then I'm going to have the sleeves kind of cuff around the arm like so. And then I'm hoping I can use a little bit of Velcro, so again, it can be removable. And the reason why I call this deception is we're actually not going to make a full shirt. It's going to be the vest, and then the two sleeves, and then we're going to do that scarf piece that goes over, and then it covers the fleshy gaps in between. So it's going to simulate that he has a full shirt when really he just has two sleeves and a vest. You get what I mean? And also, that's mechanically going to be better for this figure. It's not going to look too poofy if you did have a shirt. Like, even for NECA's brain, who you could probably make out in the back right over there, he has two layers to his clothing. He has that oversuit, and then he has that blue sweater under that suit. And that literally is just a vest. There are no blue sleeves under that, to be sure that the articulation isn't hindered and the sleeves aren't too puffed out and he doesn't look like Popeye the Sailor Man or anything. So that's pretty much the same method I'm going to use here. So I'm going to throw around my materials and I'm going to cut a few pieces up, do some measurements, and just see exactly what I have here to work with. So stay tuned. Okay, so as I was testing out a few materials, I actually threw on a custom cape that I actually never wound up using. This was probably meant for a Darth Vader or Darth Nihilus, I can't really recall. But if you have a Phantom figure or you're just looking to customize figures in general, here's an idea of what you could do. I literally just threw on a cape from a 6-inch figure onto this figure, and this actually looks pretty cool, but again, I want to keep it screen accurate, so this is an option that's in the cards. I might still wind up doing this, I'm not totally sure, but already he has that more regal feel. I could even just stop right here, but you know me, that's not how I work. We want to take this above and beyond, so I'm going to keep experimenting a little bit. Actually, you know what? I was screwing around with the cape and kind of just folding it over itself a little bit, and this is kind of working as a good base for me. So basically what I did is I took the cape, I folded the top portion back a little bit to kind of simulate that scarf kind of feel, and then I'm looking at the lower portions of this cape, and then I sort of folded the corners of the cape back over the inside of the arm, and then when you peel it back, it kind of gives him sleeves. So I might not have to do separate sleeves. Maybe the scarf and the sleeves can all be one piece. So I'm going to go ahead and think about that. Like, also, if he turned it around to the back, yeah, so he doesn't have that full scarf there. You could see that was kind of trimmed out from when this was a cape for a 6-inch scale figure. So I still might do the overall cape, the scarf in a separate piece, which will be cool. And then that'll kind of cover up the edges here. And then you'll have the vest on the inside, and then that'll look a little bit more streamlined. So you know what? This just makes the most sense to me. So yeah, I'm going to do exactly this. I'm going to fold this back a little bit and then trim it somewhat so there's not too much padding from when I put on that scarf piece. And I'm also going to probably just hide a little bit of Velcro on the inside of these. So again, the cloth can be removable, and we'll see where it goes from there. I actually realized why I never wound up using this cape to begin with, because you see those weird imperfections that are going on? That is actually some glue residue, so I suppose when I was using this cape for another figure, I tried gluing it instead of sewing it, I didn't like the results, or maybe I just didn't like the texture of the cloth for that particular figure. But for this gremlin, it lays down really nicely, so what I'll do to kind of size this up is I will actually use these blemishes as a gauge to kind of cut it and make it a little bit smaller. So you see how there's kind of an arc towards the bottom? I'm going to cut that exact same shape just below those blemishes, and I think that'll help it to lay down on the gremlin a little bit better. So since I did such a careful job crafting this cape when I did, it's already pretty symmetrical. So what I'm going to do is fold it in half with the glue side out, if you will. And then that will allow me to kind of cut it even more symmetrically when I go in for that other cut. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. be sure that folds really good. The open part is over here. I'm probably going to cut it starting from the inside. So let's go ahead and get our scissors. I'm going to kind of get a feel for where the glue is. It ends to about right there. So I'm going to start cutting it perpendicular with that fold that we have. Steadily go around. We can also do some cleanup work when we're done if I don't like the result. And just keep going around. I apologize if when we're doing these tutorials that things get a little bit off camera. Of course, I want to show you what's going on, but I want to do a good job too. So I want to be sure that everything's well centered and everything. So I've cut that out. We get a really nice sharp looking arc over there. So let's get our gremlin back, front, and center. Oh yeah, by the way, he's on a NECA base and they work spectacularly for these gremlins figures. So let's go ahead and lie that over. Okay, that looks pretty good too. So let's see here. I'm going to keep draping that over. Yeah, you know what? I think that works. Maybe I'll trim off a little bit on that's lower. So hold on a minute. Yeah, so you see how it almost feels like one giant scarf. So what I might want to do is sort of cut out these ends going down here so that way it looks like sleeves. And then you still have that cape in the back to sort of give them that drape looking thing going on. And then we should just have sleeves and then the back cape, and we'll get rid of these portions in the front, which we could also use for custom parts either for this figure or for future projects. So always keep extra parts. You never know how they're going to be useful in the future. And one thing that I just did, which you should always do whenever you're working with soft goods, is keep the arms as straight and as symmetrical as possible as you're kind of adjusting the cloth to your liking. So now I kind of have a good gauge as to how I'd like to cut the cloth. So you see, you kind of want to cut it along here, but not so it's totally flush with the arms. You want to have a little bit of extra so that way we have some room to add the Velcro or perhaps do some sewing work. I'm not going to sew because, again, I want to have this be removable. So we're going to attempt that. And since this figure is quite wide, I don't think the Velcro will impede on the design at all. So I think I'm eyeballing this. I'm not doing any measurements. But so if I pinch, of course, it's hard to gauge when you're in the camera and not in person. But like I'm touching my thumb and my middle finger to the back, and that's giving me a good idea of where I'd like to cut it. So let's just go to this side right over here, and then I'm going to hold right at that edge, use that to measure. Let's get the cloth up and away. It gets a little stuck on the horns. That's fine. So we are going to keep that edge right there. I'm going to fold it back, and then we have kind of this rectangle right here. So let's be sure everything's lined up. If it's a little off, that's okay. We can adjust it. It's okay to cut off too little. You definitely don't want to cut off too much. So let me go ahead and fold this up a bit. Straight there. Oh yeah, be careful when it dips down. You don't want to lose that shape. Again, we can clean that up. Like, see, we got that corner there that we probably do not want. So go back and trim that off. And also, it's a gremlin, so it's okay if things are a little bit rowdy, a little bit ripped up looking. I doubt these guys are going to stay clean for too long. I mean, obviously, he probably died like 10 minutes after the fact, but regardless, if he continued wearing this outfit, I doubt it would look very intact for much longer. So let's get him back on his stand so we have a nice base, kind of size him up. But yeah, I think that will work. So that's going to come down. Okay. Again, it's okay that the shoulders are exposed. I'm still going to add that scarf element afterwards, and that's going to hide the shoulders. And when you do the vest, it's kind of going to hide that a little bit too. So again, it's still playing with that optical trickery. It's not going to be a full shirt, so that will work just fine. And yeah, those should pull down enough to kind of hit a piece of Velcro right there. And then it'll cuff around the arm right there. I do think they are a little bit long, the sleeves I mean. So I'm going to cut off some extra. This type of Velcro is actually backed with a little bit of adhesive, which is good for like walls and paper, but I feel like it's not going to be necessary for this particular gremlin. I think it'll puff it out a little bit too much. So I'm going to use some tweezers to literally just remove that adhesive patch completely. And then we'll just be gluing on the Velcro, and that's it. I hope this comes off. It shouldn't be too hard. Let's work with it a little and just tear it. That should be fine. Doesn't need to be too crazy. We can kind of make out the difference. So here is, let me zoom in. Zooming a little bit, here is the one that we just removed the adhesive and the paper, and then here is the other one, which you can see is considerably thicker. So I'm going to do the exact same thing on this one, and then we're going to glue in the two corners. Now this might seem a little familiar to you. Here is again our Caliber gel glue. I just tapped the gremlin's face, but thankfully nothing was already coming out. So we're going to be very careful to apply this glue by using a toothpick. Get a little bit on there. Let's see. It's a little bit gummy, but that's all right. Sometimes gumminess is good. That just means it'll adhere all the better. So that actually might be more than I even need, but we'll start there. Then we have our Velcro right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply it to one side to start. Actually, that's a pretty good amount. Slather it all around. Keep it pretty even on all sides. And now, let's see if I can do this properly. Remember which side we just put the glue on. Take the corner right there and leave a little bit of extra room. There we go, right there. I wasn't doing a good job explaining it as I did it, but you see how I left a little bit of space for the cloth around it? That's going to be so, if this were flush, you'd see the white pretty blatantly on the outside, so that'll help to hide it a little bit, although it might not matter as much considering the vest that we're going to be doing, so that might blend in anyways. And also the tie might hide that, but anyhow, it would still just be nice to keep that out of the way. So we're going to go ahead and do it on the other side. So once again, let's get our glue. Do just a little bit on there. I think that's good. And another reason why you don't want to do it too much is you don't want it seeping through the cloth. Like kind of what we saw before. I kind of used super glue there. On those blemishes, and they kind of looked really weird, and they felt really tender. So again, just a very thin layer. This is not going to require much. If this comes off, I can either reattach it or just seek out a new method. You can even like use a button or something if you wanted. But let's see. So if we put that right there, I'm going to try my best to match it. It's kind of an intimidating process, so I'm just going to put it right over. And that should be okay. Yeah, look at that. Not so bad. So give it a few seconds to dry just to be sure that everything's doing good. It's not sticking to the figure itself, which is important. We don't want glue on the actual figure. Yep, this totally worked. So here we have the Velcro. This is literally 30 seconds later, but you can see it's removable. And then if we line things up, you can just plug it right back on. And yeah, it seems good. It's not just slipping off or anything like that. Another thing I'm going to do is I did glue this in a little bit far, as you can see, so I'm going to trim off a little bit of an edge right here, while still leaving off a little bit of excess like at the top. And it'll also just be an opportunity for me to clean up the edge a little bit. So I'm going to do that, and we'll move on to next steps. Alright, you know what? Actually, slight change of plans. I think instead of doing Velcro up here and here, I think I'm just going to do it at the wrist, because I feel like if we did it on the armpit as well, it would make things too tight and too bunchy, especially when you go to articulate the arms. It would probably just pull all the Velcro off, and I think here less is going to be more. So in order to keep that drape kind of look, it's just going to be up here at the wrists. It's still going to be really pretty. It's still going to kind of drape down. As you can see, when we articulate him, it's still going to be looking really nice. And then if we Velcroed it there, it would kind of ruffle it up. Like if he had both arms up, it would kind of get all stretched out. So we're just going to do it at the wrists. So what I think I'm going to do is, again, keep this elbow bent, so that way when we stretch it back out, then the excess will just kind of stretch to where it needs to go. I'm going to take the corner right here. And, how am I going to do this exactly? Let me give this some thought. Again, this is why this is a customizer's journal. Nothing is too clear. Okay, so I think the next move is to use the vest, or craft it rather, because it doesn't exist yet, does it? So, again, we have this cloth here that has a really nice texture that I think will work very well. So what I think I will do is I'm going to cut it to, of course, cover up the torso, and it's going to solve an actual problem here. So it's going to go right across down here on top of where this cloth intersects with itself. It's going to hold it down. It's going to do that by having two straps. It's going to have one that ties around the neck and is going to be hidden underneath the cloth. And then it's going to also have another one that's towards the bottom. And then I think what that will do is hold all this down, and they're going to have the white over piece. And then basically, we're going to use the scarf to hide the edges. So let's go ahead and see what type of shape we think we're going to want from this. Okay, so there's a reason why this is called a customizer's journal. There's going to be some changes in plans. So that Velcro that I put so much focus on towards the neck, we're not doing that anymore. So again, it attaches okay-ish, but I'm realizing it's just causing mechanical problems, especially when I'm going to want to add to the torso. So again, we're doing that vest piece. I wound up cutting out this square, and I thought it would be able to kind of tie this back and push it back, but you see it's kind of like a bungee. It's too strong. It's just going to push this out. It's going to look really awkward. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to taper these back, and I'm going to put some Velcro on, like just below the armpits instead. So I'm kind of recycling an old plan. So for this one, it's going to be no problem. I'm just going to put that one right back. As for this one, you have the Velcro on the outside, which again would probably be hidden by the scarf, but I could probably just use some tweezers and pull that right off. It won't be the most beautiful thing ever, but it'll work. So let me go ahead and do that. Much better. I don't know why I didn't start with this to begin with, but yeah, basically I just had too many ideas going on. I wound up just having to go with two of them. So again, the original plan was to do Velcro here, Velcro, then also Velcro here, and then here and here. Apparently the solution was just to do the sleeves and nothing around the neck. So now that gives us clearance to do whatever you want, and also the arms, they can do whatever you like. There's a little bit of gappage when you move them a little high. I'm personally not going to go this crazy anyways, because his arms are kind of just kind of crouched down and twiddly anyways. Oh, see, that popped out a little bit, but again, there's different ways you could do this based on what you'd like your figure to do, but for me, this is working, and also the Velcro hides really well. There's some leftover goo spludge right there from the glue, so I'm probably just going to paint that in. And again, a scarf that apparently I'm really relying on is going to hide that a little bit, but yeah, we can bend the elbows in and kind of tuck in a little bit, look a little bit cryptic and spooky. So yeah, okay, I think that element is set. I'm pretty pleased with that. So now we can move on to the vest. That plan's unchanged. I think that's still going to look pretty good with what we're going to do with it. Although there is one thing that I'm going to add. So I'm going to do the buttons right here. And I'm also going to do some cross sections of cloth to, again, kind of simulate that there is a suit going around this figure, which there is not. Okay, so here we are again. I'm going to put on the overcoat separately, but you could see here that we have these four, I guess, elastic strings coming off the sides. These ones came out pretty much perpendicular. Those are going to go around the waist. I angled these neck ones up a little bit just because I have a hunch they might need that, because it is going to get a little bit wider when we get to the neck. So now you can kind of get an idea of the lower ones tying around the back of the waist, and then the upper ones tying around the back of the neck. And I'm going to actually remove this cloak, as crazy as that sounds after all the effort we put in, and then put this down. Of course, we're going to do that after I go ahead and apply the buttons and apply the cloth and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit more dress up. Alright, I apologize if you're hearing some really loud bass from the neighbors. We're going to try and push through this, but as you can see, I've got the overcoat now over the vest part. So before I go ahead and string this around the figure, I want to do some buttons. So as I believe I've shown you before, I have this chain here, and I'm pretty much just cutting it with a wire cutter. So got these guys right here, and if you want to get a button, you just kind of hold it with your finger there, give a little snip, that comes off, and you get a little button like that. I'm actually going to leave that silver. I know it's black in the movie, but it gives a little bit of extra accent work and variation that I think looks pretty nice. Looking back at those photo references, there were 3 of them, so I already made another one, so we just need to make one more right here. So let's flip this around the right way. We'll do that again. Or try to. Give it a snip. And now we have 3. They should all be the same size and everything. So I'm just going to get some tweezers. Let's get those guys out of the way. 1, two. And I think the best way to do this is really just, I don't want to apply it straight on. Just get some glue. We'll use a cleaner end of this toothpick here. Get a little dot right on there. This tube is getting a little bit finicky, but I do right there. Our tweezers, and then just be sure you can grab one of these. Have one of the cleaner sides up. Let me just be sure I rotate that so you have a nice side facing out. I'd say about, no, other side. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So we're just gonna go ahead and put it right there. Okay. And then just drop it on, and that should be okay. Yeah, that feels pretty good. So actually we could just go right to the other one. This actually looks like it's pretty good side facing up. Now, let's rotate that one too. I'm trying to get the holes for the chain on the sides so they're not visible. Not that it matters that much, but just because I want to. And do a little more there. I think we still should have just enough. Let's see. No, I think I'm going to need a little bit more, so let me go ahead and do that. Well, I actually took up a lot of string with it, so let me go ahead and trim that. You get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and do the other three on my own. Oh, did it bleed through? Jeez. Okay. Avoid that when you go ahead and do this, but there we go. That should be fine. Alright, so I actually got him looking a lot better than I expected. So as you can see, I totally removed the overcoat for now, and then I put on the under portion, I suppose. And again, this is where the idea of that deception begins. There's no sleeves, there's not even a back to this shirt or anything, but from the front, it does indeed look as if it is a full shirt. So pretty much what I did is exactly as I said I would do. I tied up those strings in the back over here. I did the same thing over there. I double knotted them so they're nice and tight. They're not just going to pop off one day, but at the same time, if I ever want to remove it, that would be no problem. The only other thing that I did do is I put a little incision right there because I noticed that when I tied this neck back, it was kind of popping out a little bit. So I cut it, and now those white pieces can overlap. And not only does that, of course, allow that pocket to no longer exist, but now it just makes a lot more sense in terms of how this white piece would come around. Of course, you have buttons to secure both sides, so now you have that little extra edge, and it just makes it make a little bit more sense. So now let's put on the greater jacket. Alright, so here's the jacket. It looks really weird, of course, but we already know how this is going to go on. So I guess we'll drape it over the shoulders first. So let's match up this Velcro right here. And then do the same on this side as well. Right there. And now we're going to go on to the wrist. So we have those two on this side. So it's going to bring this one under and then peg it with that other one there. Let me fold that out a little bit. I got a little flopped. There we go. And then do the exact same thing to this side. Let's pull that one down a little bit. And there we go. All right, so now you kind of have an idea of where this is going. I'll bend it back. We'll zoom in a little bit there for you. And now you can see, actually, the scarf isn't even necessary. It was kind of almost get a little flush, but we're still going to do it because that would also be a little more accurate. But he's looking really cool. I'm really liking how he's turning out. So the last things that we're going to do is we are going to first make the scarf, which is going to be the easiest part of this entire process. We're also going to do the little bow tie, which should be really easy. It's just going to be like tying a shoe. We're going to use pretty much the same bands that we use to secure the vest portion. And then I might or I might not do the cuffs around the wrists. In the movie, he didn't have it, but the actual Phantom of the Opera did. So I'll probably just wind up leaving those out, but I'll think about it. If I could think of a nice way to do it without having to hurt the Velcro that's going on, then I might go for it, but I'll give it a little bit of thought and see where we go. I'm also going to try and paint in that little glue residue that we had from before, and yeah, let me see what I can do. I actually figured out what I will be cutting into that scarf, and here's another little trick for you. I have this old piece of what I believe what used to be some pants that got too small for me, as all my clothes does. And you can see that there are already these stitches in here that are kind of making out the shape that I want. So as I cut it out, it will look very straight, it'll have the right width, and I think it'll lie down on him really good. And if it's too long, we'll just trim up the ends and then make it a little shorter, and we'll see how that looks. All right, I am digging this. He looks really cool. Again, I like the fact that he has no pants. That just makes him more humorous to me, so I'm not even going to bother even attempting that. But again, we were talking about that deceptive customizing. This is not a full suit, even though it looks like it. You flip up the scarf, and you see that seam that is between the vest and also that upper tunic that we started with. So in that respect, we have succeeded already. Oops, that Velcro came undone. That's something I'll need to worry about here and there, but if that's something that pops off as you're articulating him, just get him in the pose you want, then you can pop it back on, and then it's not a big deal. But yeah, to have him idle like this already looks really good. So I decided I'm not going to do the wrist cuffs. It's not accurate to this design, so I don't feel the need to do that. So the last thing that I think we will do is go ahead and make the tie. So I have another one of these bands here, so I'm probably just going to go ahead and just tie it like a shoe. I'm going to need to kind of get a little bit close here, so I won't be able to record that, but that should be the last flourish that we need on this Phantom Gremlin, so I'll come back to you when he is all done. Okay, I think I made this dude work, and we can finally close this chapter of the Customizer's Journal. So, when we look up at the bow, which I just did, I realized I was a little too short to make it all the way around the neck, and then kind of, do that sort of shoe tie at the front. So again, I kind of did a little bit of that deception. I just tied the knot and nothing more and glued it right on. So it feels as though there is a strap that goes around that meets the bow in the front, but it does not. So a little bit more of that optical trickery going on, but yeah, so here's the figure we have, and he looks really cool. Again, it's hard to say whether or not he is accurate to the movie as he was shown, because it was very dark, the scene was very brief, you only saw him from the waist up at most. Yeah, if we go ahead and turn him around, there are no real seams. You kind of get that flap going on in the back from the scarf, which is accurate to when we first see him in the suit. We saw him from the back of the organ, which looks just fine. And then, of course, you want to put on the mask, and so see how he looks with that. It's actually my first time doing this, and oh yeah, that's good. I really like that. That's absolutely fantastic. He just needs an organ and the Christine Gremlin, and then he's all complete. But I'm not gonna go that far. I'm not making a Christine Gremlin. That would be such a task. That'd be very difficult. Although if I ever made one, I would definitely pick her up for sure. I don't even think that was a female gremlin. The only female gremlin was Greta. I think Christine was just a cross-dresser, but regardless, I really love this Phantom that we made together, and I hope you enjoy this process. Oh, there goes the mask. You can go ahead and get this in the fingers, and meanwhile, as I pose him up for this last shot of this video, I will say I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have attempted a model like this in the past. Obviously, this was not a perfect operation. It came with a lot of failures, a lot of changing my mind, coming up with new decisions. So if you have any other ideas of how this could have been done better, let us know in the comments. Like, I know I use Velcro, which doesn't look too beautiful. Again, I plan on painting that up just a little bit so it blends in a little bit more, but maybe you have a different idea as to how to make removable clothing. Again, that was kind of my intention going in. All of this can be taken off if I ever so desire, but I'm kind of so proud of my efforts that I don't think I want to take it off at this point, but that's another reason why I like that the pants are removed. You can also admire some of the original paintwork that's going on if you like. If you fold everything out of the way, you can kind of see that going on. It just makes them a lot more kooky. I really love that. But yeah, let me know if you got any more suggestions to improve this method so I could tweak them myself, or so other folks out there can do it as well. And that being said, I'm going to think of other ideas for customizers journals. If you have any other suggestions, go ahead in the comments. And maybe I could do a little something, like if you have a little tip like, hey, here's another thing that you can do, then maybe I'll make a video out of that and give you a little shout out. So, that's going to be about it for this video. This was a lot of fun, good experiment. This whole thing took about maybe 2 hours to put together between recording and all that. So overall, I'm really happy with the results. Obviously, the cloth doesn't lie down perfectly as it would be if it came from the NECA manufacturer, but for a customizer's effort, I think this is fine. It looks pretty cool. It's pretty nifty and thrifty, and it's pretty much what we saw in the film, so I'm pretty damn pleased. I love this figure all the more now. Now it has my personal touches, so I really like that. So if you enjoyed this review and you're willing to perhaps implement some of the tips I gave you into your own custom projects, then please, as per usual, be sure to like, comment,
and subscribe. O anger, a dark lord of the Sith.
All that being said, this was really cool. I liked recording it, and it was kind of just on a whim. I really didn't have a perfect plan going into this, so I'm glad it all came together in the end. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the content. The comments are all open there. If you have any suggestions or comments or critiques, it's an open field just for you. Thanks again, and I will see you all later. Of course, I had people dressing up their children. Here I am dressing up a piece of plastic. It's so odd. If only the neighbors could pick up a humble little hobby like action figures, something nice and low-key and quiet, then perhaps they wouldn't feel the need to, compensate as much with their base system. Oh, by the way, he wants you to like this video once more.